Good morning, everyone. My name is Vinay. I am working for Tracxn as a head of investor partnerships for Europe, Middle East, and Africa markets. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Dionysis, an active voice in Europe's venture capital and innovation ecosystem. He has experience working with some of the most successful VC firms and family offices in Europe who are actively investing in cutting-edge science, technology, and creativity around the world. Dionysis is driving innovation across sectors by backing high-impact founders and breakthrough technologies with a growing presence in Cyprus, one of Europe's emerging innovation hubs. In our conversation today, we will explore how Europe's venture ecosystem is evolving, how data and intelligence are transforming early-stage investing, and how platforms like Tracxn are empowering investors to discover opportunities beyond borders. Dionysus, thank you so much for joining us for today's conversation. It's a pleasure having you with us.
Thank you for having me, Vinay.
Great. Dionysus, you've been closely involved in shaping and observing the startup and VC landscape across Europe, especially Cyprus and the wider Mediterranean region. What inspired you to focus on this intersection of innovation and venture capital?
Great question. I left Cyprus a few years ago and I moved to Germany. And this is where I started trying to sustain myself. And this is where I started entering the startup ecosystem. I was the co-founder of one successful tech company back in 2020. And as someone who just leaves their country, they eventually decide to look back home. They want to see what's going on back in their country. And being in the fortunate position to work with great investors in Europe and having a seat at the table to meet how other people, how successful investors in Europe and in the US as well work and how they see the landscape evolving gave me this. It gave me this first motivation to look back home and see what's going on back home. And I'm driven by the success stories of these countries. I'm driven by the success stories of the Czech Republic, of Hungary, of Romania. You hear of these unicorns that emerge from these ecosystems, and I'm thinking, okay, so let's see what's going on back home. And this is when I started looking. What's going on back in Cyprus and how can I help drive the ecosystem forward.
Excellent. So that affection towards your home country has been the driving factor.
Exactly. Yes.
Excellent. Now, Cyprus is emerging as a growing hub for innovation in Europe. How would you describe its evolution in the last few years? What unique opportunities or challenges stand out?
Based in history, Cyprus has been a very significant island from a geopolitical standpoint. It was seen as a strategic point in the map. It bridges Asia and Europe as well. And since Cyprus joined the European Union, it's been 20 years now or so, it really transformed into a tech hub. So Cyprus is now being seen as a tech hub, and more founders are moving to Cyprus, or they start building from Cyprus. And since it's a country that English is widely spoken because it's being learned at school, we're seeing that a lot of more and more Europeans choose Cyprus as the destination where they can start their own company. They can build globally. And Cyprus also has some excellent universities, a good quality of life, and favorable tax laws as well. So we're seeing a lot of momentum being built up. And right now, we're also seeing the emergence of some innovation centers. We're seeing a lot of more funding being driven into these startups. And we're also seeing the formation of the first venture capital funds, which I'm in the fortunate positions to work with. So yeah, we're in the early stages of forming a really strong self-sustained ecosystem. And I think 2024 is a pivotal year for Cyprus, and it's going to be mentioned in the years ahead.
Oh, excellent. So there are some tax-friendly government policies that are helping founders to start their ventures from Cyprus.
Yes. Cyprus was seen as a tax haven in the past, but now we're moving past that. I think we're seeing more local founders being in the spotlight, and I think we're moving past this stigma, I would say, into more innovation, like a real tech ecosystem in Cyprus.
Excellent. Now, how do you see the European VC ecosystem maturing compared to the other regions like US or Asia? Are we entering a new phase of European-led innovation?
Yeah, so if we're being completely honest, I think Europe is still playing catch up, especially when compared to the US, maybe even Asia as well. But I think due to this surge in technology and the rise of AI, I think we're seeing these barriers breaking a little bit. But I want to focus on one issue in Europe, that it doesn't have a centralized hub for innovation. It doesn't have its own Silicon Valley like the US does, where every founder moves in the same proximity and they work with each other, and they create this feedback loop where each one learns from each other, and they build quick, they break things fast, like the Silicon Valley motto. So what Europe needs is just a single capital market, and I think Mario Draghi also mentioned this in his reports. I think most of the founders and even the investors in the space are advocating for a unified, centralized ecosystem in Europe where every founder can operate in the same regulatory environment. Because right now, if you are building in Estonia, you're navigating different regulations than if you're building in Paris. So we have to navigate that, and we have to create a more founder-friendly ecosystem in order to catch up with the US and even Asia as well.
Great. So the necessity of one ecosystem where all founders can work towards one common goal.
Yes, exactly. And I would also mention that we also need to see more risk taking. This is also a mentality issue that Europeans have. We're more conservative with risk taking. We're more relying on our social safety nets, which is good that we have this social safety net, but we need to see more risk taking and risk and failure even being rewarded and encouraged in Europe.
Got it. Given current macroeconomic conditions, slower fundraising cycles, valuation corrections, and the push toward capital efficiency, how are European investors adapting their strategies?
Yeah, so European investors have always been more slightly cautious. As mentioned, investors and founders are both cautious when it comes to investing and risk taking. So this market correction didn't come as a shock, but we're also seeing these habits being reinforced, where we're seeing more slower pacing in terms of investment. We're seeing higher reserves, more discipline in investment, more cautious toward inflated valuations that we're seeing in the US, for example. So actually, Europeans have always been more conservative. So this transition from growth at all costs to survival and longevity could be a good thing. We're seeing more shift towards quality rather than just investing in everything and seeing more higher failure rates. So it's healthy. I would say it's healthy.
Great. Do you think we are seeing a shift in focus from purely financial returns to impact and sustainability-driven investments in Europe?
Oh, this shift happened years ago in Europe. I mean, Europe has passed environmental friendly regulations aimed towards sustainability and impact since the 2000s. So for us investors who are active in Europe, we're seeing more and more impact focused funds that they are being founded with the sole mission of driving impact and returns at the same time. So yeah, Europe has always been more impact and sustainably driven than the US, for example. So that could be an advantage in the future, I would say, for sure.
Excellent. Now, with thousands of startups emerging across Europe every year, how do you personally, or as an ecosystem advisor, keep track of new opportunities and trends?
Yeah, it's becoming impossible to keep track of everything right now. I mean, the volume of new ventures, the volume of new startups, it's just extraordinary right now. So the key for us is not to be chasing information, but to build some systems where we can get the information to discover. So I would say every successful investor needs to have this system where they receive structured information at all times, and they can stay up to date. So for example, Tracxn does that for me. I use Tracxn to build some systems where I can get information flowing constantly. So this is why I believe more and more investors are looking into such platforms like Tracxn, where they can receive these data-driven insights. And yeah, I believe today you have to anticipate momentum. Like I said, you don't have to change. You shouldn't chase information. You have to anticipate, and the only way to do that is to having access to data constantly, basically.
Great. Great. So having access to data is crucial. Now, a follow-up question here. How important is access to structured, verified data when evaluating early stage ventures today?
Yeah, look, early stage investing is misunderstood. It's a lot harder than it looks, and there are many schools of thought. One would say that traditionally larger funds will focus on this pray and pray approach, while they would just invest in everything that comes to their table. They will rely on the power law, the law that a small amount of bets will drive up the majority of the returns of the fund, for example. So they will bet on everyone, hoping that 2, 3 winners will make up. But I think things are changing because we're now seeing more and more investors being data driven, like I said. So we're all building sophisticated valuation methods because we need to stay ahead of the competition. And in such a competitive landscape, you're competing with other data driven investors to get the first deals, the best deals first. So yeah, at the early stage, information asymmetry is huge, and you need to have this structured and verified data that you can use to make the best decision possible. And Tracxn, for example, is one great example here because it provides such structured and verified data that can be customized depending on who are you and what your goals are with investing. So combining that with your own judgment and intuition is where alpha is created, in my opinion, in early stage venture.
Great. So do you think platforms like Tracxn that consolidate global startup data, sector intelligence, can help investors discover opportunities beyond their traditional networks or regions?
Yes, no doubt. Yeah, you cannot rely on traditional deal flow channels anymore. Back in the day, you will expect deals to come through your network. The founders will come to you, but at this point, everyone is building publicly. You're seeing lists being popped up here and there. So you have to look. You have to look globally yourself. You have to do your own research. And innovation today, I believe, it's distributed. So great founders can emerge from anywhere. So if you are an investor in Cyprus, you need to be aware of what's going on in the rest of Europe or in the US. So this is what I like more about platforms like Tracxn, because they break that bias by democratizing visibility. They basically allow anyone, any founder from any country to be visible to any investor anywhere. So we're seeing this. It's like a social media type of network effect that's being created, where you can basically find out about the operations of each startup from anywhere in the world. So we're slowly turning everything into a global ecosystem that is searchable, structured, and comparable. And this is why I like platforms like Tracxn.
Thank you, Dionysis. Now, what common patterns do you see among successful founders emerging from smaller ecosystems like Cyprus or Greece?
Good question. Yeah. So I think funding is an issue here in Cyprus and Greece, although we're seeing some good momentum building. But so this can also be seen as a good thing because it makes founders being more resourceful. So, for example, they can't rely on endless networks and funding pools. So they have to learn how to operate lean and experiment fast and to adapt. So yeah, this is something that you don't. This is a luxury that overfunded environments can't bring. And we're also starting to see more and more founders thinking globally from day one, because they have to. They have to build companies that can scale globally immediately, because they need to have this visibility um, that platforms like Tracxn provide. They can list, for example, in such platforms. They are being identified by these platforms, so they are creating a startup that is global from day one. And they can also go outside and find investors or even clients. They can refine their go-to-market strategies globally from day one. So, yeah, this is the pattern that we're seeing.
Excellent. What's your advice to local founders who want to attract European or global VC attention?
Yeah, my advice is to start global, like build publicly and think globally. You need to structure your product, your company, everything. You need to structure it and speak this language of scale, because global investors can sense when a team is thinking big versus when they're just testing the waters, and basically a company that's obvious that it's testing the waters, it's not fundable. So that's why you need to show ambition. You need to think outside the box and approach problems in unusual ways that even investors will be caught off guard. Even your clients will be caught off guard. So, and another thing that's very big, because we learned that in Cyprus as well, it's to build relationships before you need anything. Build a relationship before you need capital. Build relationships before you need a sale. Because I know most founders underestimate how long trust building, how important is long-term trust building.
Got it. Now, looking ahead, which sectors or technologies excite you most in the European venture scene?
Very interesting question. This is something that I've used Tracxn before to do some research on, because I'm very interested in deep tech. And if you're interested in a sector, or in a big vertical like deep tech, you need to map it out. So this is another advantage of using platforms like Tracxn provide, because it allows you to map out. You can see how many startups. You can separate startups by industry, for example. So yeah, like I mentioned earlier, Europe is one of the biggest and more talent pool and universities. So I expect a lot of deep tech technologies to come out of Europe. We're already seeing these universities produce massive amounts of talent and patents coming out on a yearly basis. And we're also seeing advancements in AI, biotech, quantum computing, space tech, and more recently even Europe. So we're very bullish in these sectors, and I'm intrigued because deep tech is where we are focusing on defense. We're also focusing on longevity, like driving humanity forward, sustainability, and I think this is what matters basically, because in the future nothing else will matter than sustainability.
Excellent. Yes, Europe, I think, is leading climate tech or sustainability investments. No,
exactly.
If you could fast forward to 2030, what would you want to see in the European startup ecosystem, and what role should data intelligence play in getting us there?
Okay, so we're talking about 5 years ahead, and I would say I would want to see a more connected European ecosystem. For example, I want to see a founder in Cyprus who can raise from a French VC fund to have a team in Poland and to serve clients in Sweden or Norway. We want to see this interoperability, this connectivity between each country that we're not really seeing right now. We're seeing it a little bit, but not fully. And I think for that to happen, data and intelligence will be key from both the founder and the investor side, because we need to have access to transparent, structured, cross-border data to make discovery easier for both investors and founders. This is where I've been also personally focusing on driving visibility and discovery, because this is how we invest in modern day, how we create companies and invest today. So platforms that map this landscape, like I said earlier, like Tracxn and others in this field, will act as the infrastructure that connects the innovation dots across regions. So yeah, if we get that right, I think Europe can finally stop being this seen as this collection of individual startups that succeed here and there, and we'll be seeing as one real innovation continent that will with the likes of the US and Asia.
Great. Thank you, Dionysis, for joining us. These insights are quite helpful, and I am sure there are a lot of takeaways for the European VCs as well as the founders. I really appreciate your time today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this call with Dionysis. He is a VC enthusiast, and he's an author. He's a geopolitical analyst. Also, he is a certified valuation analyst. Looking forward to catching up with you with a new interview soon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Vinay. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.